010. It's me. I'm free. These words were heard on the telephone receiver on the night of April 26, 1996 by Anne Catherine of German billionaire Jan Phillip Reemtsma. The 43-year-old rich man's wife had disappeared without a trace 33 days earlier. He had been kidnapped and a ransom of 30 million marks was demanded for his life. The kidnapping of the Hamburg multimillionaire, literary critic and patron of the arts is one of the most spectacular criminal cases in German history. Rarely has a kidnapper been held captive for so long, and never before has a higher ransom been paid. The kidnapper, Thomas Drach, received 15 million marks, 12.5 million Swiss francs. Most of this sum has never been recovered, and Thomas Drach was released from prison a few weeks ago after serving his sentence. Dozens of detectives are on his trail, hoping he will lead them to the hidden money. For the huge sum of millions, it is assumed that a large part. Another part was laundered in Bulgaria with Drach's Bulgarian accomplices. During his escape from the police, he had a relationship with the Bulgarian Maria Gusleova. It was she who connected him with people in Sofia who helped him launder part of the ransom. Maria's ex-husband Kuzman Gusleov is considered one of the organizers of the money laundering with the kidnapping. See below for Gusleov. Where the clean money went, however, is not known. Who is Jan Phillip Reemtsma? The hamburger. The rich man is the heir to the tobacco concern of the same name and the grandson of its founder Bernhard Reemtsma. It is said that the grandfather is the prototype of Dimitar Talev's character Boris Morev from Tobacco. Jan Phillip was born in 1952. In 1980 he sold the concern for 300 million marks. In 1984 he founded his own Institute for Sociological Research, which attracted media attention with a controversial exhibition of Wehrmacht relics. Reemtsma is a philanthropist and sponsors cultural events and scientific research. He teaches literature at various universities. The day everything in his life turned upside down was March 25, 1996. Reemtsma left his house in Hamburg's Blankensee district to go to his office and get a book. The office was just 50 meters away. On the way there, however, he is attacked. Several men beat him, knocked him to the ground, and blindfolded him. They take him to a house rented. The leader of the gang is Thomas Drach. In order not to be recognized by his speech, he issues orders to his victim only in English. At midnight on March 25th, the kidnapped man's wife, Anne Catherine Shearer, went outside to look for her husband. She saw a letter on the fence, a hand grenade jammed in it. The letter was from the kidnappers. In it, they first demanded 20 million marks and threatened to kill Reemtsma if they did not receive it. Neither the police nor the media should get involved, because even for such a transgression, their victim would pay with his life. Nevertheless, the wife immediately informed the police. 2 days later, the kidnappers sent another letter with instructions on how to deliver the money and a photo of the wounded Reemtsma. This was the first sign that the rich man was alive. They threatened to cut off one of his fingers if the delivery of the money failed. The money was to be delivered on April 3rd, but Reemtsma's wife and lawyer were late and the place appointed for the delivery of the ransom failed. There was a second attempt a week later. It also failed. The kidnappers did not harm Reemtsma again despite the threats. They sensed that the police had been informed and made Reemtsma contact other relatives. He called his friends. A pastor was informed. The two were friends. They organized another attempt to give the bribe. They informed the police. In the meantime, the amount had grown to 30 million marks. They handed over the money on April 26th. Reemtsma was released. 5:05. Shot in Sofia. The, ro- the role of the media should also not be underestimated. This is one of the few cases in which all media outlets obey the police's request not to report on the kidnapping because it would endanger the victim's life. More journalists learned about the kidnapped Reemtsma during those 33 days, but none of them broke their pledge of silence. It was only after the millionaire's release that they pounced on the case and reported on it for weeks. Just a month after Reemtsma's release, the police caught Thomas Drach's two accomplices in Spain. They were sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. A third accomplice was arrested shortly afterwards. He received a 6-year sentence. 401. However, the brain of the criminal group of kidnappers, Thomas Drach, managed to elude the police for the next 2 years. He was not arrested until 1998 in Argentina. 2 years later, he was extradited to Germany and sentenced to 14.5 years in prison. He was originally scheduled to be released in July 2012, but was accused by an acquaintance of trying to blackmail his brother with letters from prison. He received another year in prison and was released in October 2013. He spent 15 years behind bars. However, the pursuit of the money continues. One of the traces leads to Sofia. Bulgarian friends of Dra helped him launder a large part of the ransom. Police in Germany are convinced. Until his arrest in Argentina, Thomas Dra maintained contact with 3 Bulgarians, Bizar, Christo and Emil. He was connected to them by his then-girlfriend, Maria Gusleova. According to German media, she is a former prostitute. Bizar, Christo and Emil come into view. Christo and Emil come under the police's attention after it is discovered that all 3 have huge sums of money in their accounts in a bank in Sofia. They claim to earn their money by trading pork. The attempts of the German prosecutor's office and the Bulgarian police to find clear evidence that the Bulgarians' money came from the ransom remained fruitless. Initially, the Germans' work with their Bulgarian colleagues went well, but the person in charge of the investigation on the Bulgarian side has since retired. His successors are no longer so cooperative. Another clue leads to Bulgaria. Drach carries his pre-arrest in Buenos Aires with him. A fake British passport in the name of Anthony Lawler. The stamps on it show. Dra fled to Argentina from Bulgaria, passing through Uruguay and Venezuela. There is also a stamp with the letter A in the passport, which clearly indicates access to a safe. However, it is not clear which bank this safe is in and in which country. The flag is square, in black and green, above. Dra has been to Sofia 3 times. He first entered the country on November 6, 1996. Exactly 7 months after Reemtsma was kidnapped. The bribe was paid in marks and Swiss francs. The marks were in €1,000 banknotes. A total of 15,000 of them are believed to have been laundered in Bulgaria. At that time, the mark was the most important currency in Bulgaria, even surpassing the dollar in importance. In 1996, the average salary of a Bulgarian police officer was 150 marks. The police know that Dra has a relationship with 34-year-old prostitute Maria Gusleova. But they still don't know that she connected him with 31-year-old pig trader Bizar, with whom Dra signed a contract to open accounts and safes in Sofia in his name. They apparently hold some of the ransom money and were most likely laundered. How does this happen? Spiegel contacted an expert in Sofia at the time, who explained to them that dirty money from bank accounts is sent to offshore accounts in Cyprus, Barbados, or the Cayman Islands. Dollars are returned, which the client can safely dispose of and place in banks in Central and Eastern Europe. Beiser hired his friend Christo as an intermediary, Spiegel revealed. Christo was living in a studio apartment in Druzhba at the time and refused to answer the questions of 24 Chasa, which sought him out in 1996. With the third Bulgarian, Emil, Thomas Drach is contacted through his best friend Bernd Kramer. Emil maintains contact with Maria Guslikova. Emil's account also suddenly swells to 5 million marks. Where the huge sum came from is not clear. It is also not clear what happens to the money. After the retirement of their Bulgarian contact, the German investigators no longer have any contact with their Bulgarian colleagues. They simply stop working on the case. Before this happens, however, they tap the phones of Maria's mother to see if she has contact with Thomas Drach. No such contact has been found. The Bulgarian connection has never been unraveled, and the money, sunk in Sofia, disappears without a trace. Kapka Todorova, Germany. BG Brain of Operation Gusleov killed over 600 kilograms of coke. Not punishment for the kidnapping of the German tycoon, but the theft of 600 kilograms of cocaine from a Colombian cartel was the reason for the murder of Kuzman Gusleov. The ex-husband of Thomas Drach's mistress Maria Guslikova, however, has long been suspected by German police as the mastermind in laundering the millions of euros in ransom paid for Jan Reemtsma. This is what police officers and anti-mafia agents who investigated the Bulgarian connection to the kidnapping in Germany remember. Until the Bulgarian's death, no direct connection was found between the money from international scandal surrounding the kidnapping of Jan Phillip Reemtsma in 1996. Gusleov lived peacefully until the end of 1998, when he made the rather strange decision to Bulgaria. At the same time, Thomas Drach was living his last days in freedom before being arrested. There is a version that Gusleov came to our country to invest some of the ransom money in legal activities. He claims to friends that he is returning to take care of his father, will invest in real estate and support himself from rent. In the following months, Kuzman buys 3 apartments in the Lausanais district, but remains living in his home on the small stretch of Vitosha, Gurgaliat Boulevard. He also begins building a villa in the resort of Sveti Vlas, but never sees its completion. According to operational information, the cocaine shipment for which Kuzi the shark was killed arrived on the yacht Latin America and was unloaded in Piraeus, Greece in early 1999. OT. In Bulgaria, the drug was transported in a truck through the Kulata border checkpoint. Once it was brought into the interior of the country, the shipment was hidden in a huge warehouse in the Blagovgrad region. Kirill Svetanov Bayata was sent there to organize the theft. Then the transportation involved. Then Kuzman Gusleov and his very close friend and business partner Robert Stefanov, who was killed a few months after the shark, were involved in the transportation. On October 27, 1999, Gusleov returned home, where guests were waiting for him. At about 11 p.m., he parked his Jeep at 19 Gurgaliat Street. He grabbed the bags of wine and appetizers and ran to the 3rd floor, not suspecting that the killer was waiting for him on the landing of the 2nd floor. When Kuzman was halfway up the stairs, the mercenary jumped out in front of him and shot him in the chest. While the wounded man was staggering, the killer shot him in the forehead and neck, and when Gusleov fell face down on the stairs, he was killed with a shot to the back of the head. He was shot with a 9mm pistol, most likely a Makarov or Stechkin. The killer left the shell casings at the site. However, they never led investigators to the mercenary.